Hey everyone, Mr. Mayor here. In this video we're going to prove triangle congruence. By the end of it you should be able to say I can use a two-column proof to prove two triangles congruent by the HL or hypotenuse leg congruence postulate. Same directions as before, we need to use a two-column proof to prove the following. We know EW right here, this line is the perpendicular bisector of segment OL right in here, and we know that segment or side OW is congruent to LE. Our job is to prove the two triangles congruent. Just like normal, we are going to start with our given information. This is always, we need to start somewhere in our proof. And again, the proof statement, this is always where we end. This is the final answer. So for statement number one, just go ahead and use that very first statement that was told to us. We know that EW is the perpendicular bisector of OL, and again, remember the reason is because it was provided or given information. Using number one to help us with number two. If EW is the perpendicular bisector, we've got two important things to understand here. The first part that I'm going to discuss is the word perpendicular. Perpendicular, again, means lines or segments, anything that intersects at 90-degree angles or right angles. So since I have two things intersecting perpendicularly, we know that some right angles are going to be created, and those right angles are angle OBW and LBE. So OBW is right here. Again, always make sure you are labeling your diagram. You want to make sure that we can visualize this as we are writing things in the table. OBW and LBE. LBE is right here, so these are both 90-degree angles. Now usually at this point, we're going to say that these are congruent, but watch what we're going to do. Again, the whole point of this video is to discuss HL congruence postulate. For an HL congruence postulate, what HL stands for, this is hypotenuse, this is leg. And for a hypotenuse leg, the only type of triangle that has a hypotenuse is a right triangle. So if we have a right triangle, we can use hypotenuse leg. Those angles, we don't have to say that they're congruent, because all we need to say is that we have the right angles. Again, the reason why we know that we have right angles is because we use the definition of a word from the given. We use the definition of the perpendicular bisector. Now again, we talked about the word perpendicular. Let's go ahead and discuss this word bisector. Bisector means cutting things in equal halves or congruent halves. So since EW, this entire line, is bisecting segment OL, OL is the side that's going to be cut in half. This is the segment going to be cut in half, which means B is the midpoint. And this means that this half must be congruent to this half. So I know that this side, I'm going to label it here, don't forget to label, is going to be congruent to the other half. Writing that in our table, we can see for step number 3 that OB is going to be congruent to LB. And the reason for that, same thing we did for number 2, we use the definition of that word, the perpendicular bisector from the given. All right, so at this point, I know I have 90-degree angles. So I've got my 90s, I've got my right angles, this is good. Step number 3 tells me that I have 2 of these sides in the triangle. Now usually we mark these sides with S's because they are sides, but again for HL I need a hypotenuse and a leg. Hypotenuse is the longest side of the triangle, always across from the 90-degree angle, so eventually I need to make sure that I have this side congruent. A leg is just one of the other short sides. So since I have another short side and another short side marked here, I have a leg. So I'm going to make that note to myself. Nothing else that's really going to help us with the words perpendicular or bisector, but I do have this other given. So I'm going to go ahead and write that in the diagram. Side OW is congruent to side LE. And again, that was given information, so easy enough. We just mark it in there. And now I'm going to mark that OW. Let's put 2 dashes because I already used 1 dash for both triangles. OW is going to match with LE. And now we see that this is the longest side in both triangles. This is my hypotenuse. The nice thing with HL is you need a hypotenuse the same in both, you need a leg the same in both, and you have to make sure that you have right angles. Once you have all 3 of these criteria, then you are finished. Your triangles are congruent. Make sure you're writing it in the same order that we wrote it in the beginning, and we wrote it correctly here. The reason for that, again, is our new postulate, HL, hypotenuse leg congruence postulate. All right, everyone, thanks for tuning in. Good luck on your assessment.